Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duncan from overlandjournals.com and welcome to part 3 of my 13-part series on overlanding or off-roading for beginners. Last week I talked about vehicles. This week I'm going to talk about vehicle basic modifications for vehicles you should consider, and also vehicle related gear I feel you should be carrying when you go off-roading. Welcome back. If you are new to this channel, my channel is all about sharing my years of experience in overlanding or off-road touring with the rest of the wider community. And if that's something that interests you, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll be bringing weekly videos. Currently I'm doing this 13-part series on overlanding or off-roading for beginners, and more regular content on a weekly basis will be coming out, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. In case you missed the first 2 parts of this series, I'll leave the links below for you to check them out, and also I'll leave links above. Go check it out, because in the first part was about the introduction to this whole series, and I listed out everything that I'm going to talk about each Thursday. And the second part was about what type of vehicle you should consider when you're going overlanding or looking to get into the lifestyle. So make sure you check those out. Each video, before I get down to the topic, I like to share with you one of little details in my what I enjoy when I do off-road touring or overlanding. And today I wanted to share with you this book here. Now, this is a beautiful book I picked up during one of my travels. It lists out all the iconic Outback pubs or bush pubs in Australia, and one of the little bucket lists I've got is to try and visit each and every one of these bush pubs. Bush pubs are very iconic wherever you go in remote Australia, and even in the cities for that matter. It's just an integral part of the Australian culture, and I love going to places like this. That's just one of the places that you can get to. So what I'm doing is, whenever I travel, I make sure that I include at least one of these pubs along my trip route wherever possible, and then I just tick it off as I go along. So this is a beautiful book. I mean, you can get it on the internet as well, various Outback pubs out in Australia. So that's something I enjoy doing whenever I travel. All over Australia, there are, in this book, there are about 52 Outback pubs listed in here. Happy to say I've so far done 4 of them, so I've got a fair way to go. And one of the most memorable pubs for me, which I did 2 years ago, is this one here, the iconic Birdsville pub. It's got a lot of history behind the Birdsville pub's got a lot of history behind it, and goes back to the late 1800s. So yeah, I thought I'd just share that with you. So before we get to the topic of today's video, I want to answer a few questions that was asked at the end of the previous video, the video on vehicles. And I'll quickly try and answer those questions. I won't read out the entire question. That's available for reading if anyone's interested. But the first question is from Amanda Paul, and she's asking whether her Nissan X-Trail is good enough for overlanding. And I'll say yes, it is. It's a very capable vehicle. Obviously, as with any vehicle, it's got its limitations. So exactly how far you can go remote, or how the places that you can travel to, is limited by the capabilities of the vehicle. And it's what it is. It is designed for by the manufacturer. But if you are getting into this lifestyle, Nissan X-Trail is a very capable vehicle. So yeah, get out there and start traveling. Watch out for the others. Parts of this series. I'll talk about whether you should travel alone or not, or how you should do your trip planning, and where you can figure out what your vehicle can take you. So watch out for that part, Amanda. I feel that would be quite useful, as the rest of the series would be. So the second question comes from James Batten, and he asks 3 questions. So first question is, should he travel remote? What would happen if there is a breakdown? His knowledge in mechanical repairs is very limited or almost non-existent. Second part of the question is communication in a situation like that. And then the third part is what are the 4x4 hire companies out there? So my answer to you, James, is if you're getting into this lifestyle, do not think about traveling all by yourself. That's not advisable. Best way to do it is travel with another seasoned traveler or a group of seasoned travelers, and then learn from them. but I'll talk in detail down the series about that. And also communications. There is a part in this episode, one of the episodes coming up, where I've dedicated that to communications and what kind of communication equipment you should consider. So hang in there for that part, which will come down the track. I think that'll be quite useful. But it still takes me back to what I said. No matter what you've got in terms of communications and so on, do not travel by yourself at the start. Same when it comes to 4x4 hire companies. There are a number of reputed hire companies out there. I won't mention any of the names. You need to do your research, do check out the reviews, and if you still need my input, you're welcome to write to me, and I'll gladly try and help you out. Still brings me back to what I said earlier. Even if you've got a fully kitted 4x4 which you've just rented, it's got all the equipment that you need. Still, if you're getting into this lifestyle, do not travel alone. Travel with a group of mates who have got who are seasoned in this lifestyle, and then gradually get yourself into it. I do remote traveling sometimes, just myself and my wife only in one vehicle, but that's also within reason, and also because I've got years of experience. But when I started out, I did some foolish things when I traveled alone, and I wouldn't advise it. So learn from my mistakes. So I hope I answered that question, James, and keep watching the rest of the series. Now, I've got to say this at the start of every video. My channel is all about sharing my experiences and my knowledge, but that does not mean I am the ultimate expert. Please do not take it that way. Do not take what I say as the gospel. Do your own research. My idea is to share my knowledge and experiences with you. So that's kind of like a starting point or a base or added information as part of your wider research. So do your own research as well. So now to the topic of the day, which is modifications for your vehicle and also vehicle related gear that I feel you should consider carrying. Now, because this is for beginners, for those who are getting into this lifestyle, I'm keeping it bare basics. There are lots and lots of gear out there. You can buy as much as your pocket allows, but there are certain basics, and I feel start with your basics and then build up from there. Don't have to go and spend all that money. If you want to, that's up to you, but you don't have to. When I first started overlanding, we didn't have, well, honestly speaking, I couldn't afford much of the gear, spend most of the money on this battered old 4x4, which I and a friend went 50-50 on and bought. So we didn't have money for gear. We just had a little bit of money to go on trips. That's it. And so we traveled. We had bare basic gear. Sometimes even that didn't work properly. But we did it anyways. So what I'm trying to say is today the market is, filled with all sorts of tempting gear and modifications you can get for your vehicle, but honestly speaking, you don't really need to get all of them. So I'll talk about the basics in this video. As you do more and more traveling, you will learn and you'll realize exactly what you need and what you don't need. So get your basics right and then get into it, and then over time you'll figure out what you need and what you don't need. I mean, even despite having the years of experience I've got, I still sometimes find when I go on a trip that there are things in my 4x4 or things that I carry which are not really necessary. They go all the way on this trip and then come back completely unused, or it doesn't provide any functionality. So always start with your basics and then build up, and then you'll figure out with experience what you need and what you don't need. Here's my list of basic vehicle modifications and vehicle related gear that I feel you should carry when you go overlanding or off-roading. Now, there are some assumptions I've made in this video as well as in this entire series, because it's meant for more aimed at beginners and those who are getting into this lifestyle. My assumptions are you're not going to get into remote traveling immediately. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it initially. And secondly, that you're not going to go in extremely harsh terrain where it's really demanding on the vehicle. So it's based on those assumptions that I've come up with this list. So here goes. So vehicle modifications. Now this is not in any particular order, but a bull bar is essential, I feel, whether you're traveling here in Australia or Africa or wherever there's a lot of wildlife, livestock. You don't even have to get anywhere near remote, and you'll get animals, coming across in front of your path. So it's always good to have a bull bar because that protects your vehicle. I personally try and avoid driving at night, but even then, during the day, they come out of the blue, especially late afternoons when they are more active, or early morning when they're active, they come out of nowhere, and your chances of driving into one of these animals is quite good or quite high. So be prepared. So get yourself a bull bar, and that'll protect you and your vehicle. Now, if you're buying a vehicle, or you're considering buying a vehicle brand new, a lot of manufacturers offer bull bars as part of the package, or you can get it as part of your financing from as accessory supplier. If you're buying second-hand or pre-owned vehicle, one of the best ways to get value, I talked about this in my previous video, is to get a vehicle that's already got some of these accessories like the bull bar installed, because you're only paying for the resale value of the vehicle. You're not really paying for that bull bar or any other accessory for that matter. So look into that. If you don't have any of that, then a great place to get pre-owned accessories like bull bars is, like here in Australia, we've got Gumtree, and in your country, wherever you are, there could be similar online platforms where you can get, people selling off accessories, and that's a great place to buy bull bars. Now, what are the things to keep in mind when you're getting a bull bar? Some bull bars come with provision for a winch to be installed. You don't need a winch at this point, and you may not need a winch at all, depending on the parts of the country that you're planning on touring. But you may need to install a winch down the track. So make sure you get a bull bar. It is an investment after all, so get a bull bar that has the provision. Keep in mind, not all bull bars come with provision to have winches installed. The next important thing to consider, and I feel this is even more important than a bull bar, is appropriate tires. Now, when you buy brand new, a lot of the manufacturers today, they are even off-road capable vehicles are more geared towards on-road or blacktop travel, and that's because vast majority of the customers who buy these vehicles don't really venture off-road. So manufacturers gear their vehicles more towards the majority. So I've seen a lot of these 4x4s which are capable of going off-road, or SUVs, don't really come with appropriate tires. They're more black top bias tires. So make sure you get appropriate tires if you are getting into this lifestyle and looking to go off-road. A good set of all-terrain tires is what I would recommend. As you get more experience, and as you start getting more and deeper into country, then you can look at more specialist tires like mud terrain tires or sand bias tires and so on. But right now, a good set of all-terrains is what I would recommend. Always go for a reputed brand. Go to your local a tire retailer, and they'll be able to give you more advice based on the kind of vehicle you've got and the type of tires that they feel is suitable for your kind of travel. But all-terrains are good tires, and stick to a good reputed brand. Don't take chances on brands that have just come out, because they're unknowns at this point. So yeah, a good set of tires is essential. Another point I want to make clear is I've seen a lot of capable off-road capable SUVs coming out these days, and they have low profile tires. And on one occasion during one of my remote travels, I came across this vehicle. It was, from the looks, there was no people, that just abandoned it, obviously gone to get help. Brand spanking new, no more than a year old, and they were still on their original factory supplied low profile tires, and they'd blown all 4 tires. So don't make that mistake. The manufacturers might advertise and tell you that their vehicle is capable of going anywhere in the world, but you got to make sure those tires are up to scratch, because they don't always supply tires that can go anywhere in the world, as the adverts may say. While on the topic of tires, there are 3 tire related accessories that I feel you should carry with you every time you go overlanding, off-road. And starting with a good air compressor, because when you get off the blacktop, depending on the conditions of the road that you're driving on, lowering tire pressures is something that is generally recommended. Lowering tire pressure, like especially when you're driving over corrugations, depending on how bad the corrugations are, then the lower that you can go, obviously within the limits that your tire allows. And lowering tire pressures makes it so much easier on the vehicle, far more comfortable for the occupants, and also it gives you better handling So now I will do a video down the track sometime on use of the compressor, and how much of pressures to go down to. So initially, as you're getting into this lifestyle, you may not know exactly how much to go. It comes with experience, or being with others who have experience. But at the same time, there are heaps of YouTube videos out there you can on this particular topic. So you can do a bit of research. But a compressor is something that I feel is very important to carry. When you are buying a compressor, make sure you buy from a reputed brand. There are there are good brands out there from from reasonable price range all the way to a very high end. But what I'm saying is get yourself from a reputed brand, because the last thing you want is when you're out there and you need it the most and the compressor doesn't work properly, then it's pretty useless. Next, if you're going to lower pressures and then bring them back up to pressure when you get back on the blacktop, you're going to need to know how much your pressure is. So you need to get yourself a tire pressure gauge. Again, buy from a good reputed brand. A tire pressure gauge will be quite invaluable. In fact, I use my tire pressure gauge even when I'm running around in the city, because the pressures that you get, or the pressure gauges that you get in the servos or petrol stations, are not always accurate, from my experience at least, because these need to be regularly calibrated, and it doesn't always happen on time. So what I do is, whenever I fill up my tires in the city and I come back home, I get my pressure gauge out from my 4B and I check the pressures just to make sure they're where they should be as recommended by the tire supplier, and that'll also give you a longer tire life. Thirdly, get yourself a good puncture repair kit. Now you might already be wondering, well, if I get a puncture repair kit, I don't even know how to use it. Well, again, I will do a video down the track on how to use the puncture repair kit. But when you buy a puncture repair kit, if you're buying it from a tire service or a retailer, they'll most likely be happy to help show you how a puncture repair kit is used. Again, there are heaps and heaps of videos out there you can watch on YouTube to see how to use one. It's very easy. It's not difficult at all, but having one is very important. So, and now on to vehicle related accessories I feel you should carry when you go off-road or when you go overlanding. And again, in no particular order, and these are just bare basics, starting with a good jack. Every vehicle I know comes with a jack, but in my experience, the manufacturer supplied jacks are not always the best. Again, they are more designed for use in city conditions where you got blacktop, you got level roads or level surfaces that you're driving on. So they work, and some of them come with these scissor jacks, which are pretty useless in my opinion. Or they get these little, what they call bottle jacks. It looks like a little bottle, works on hydraulic with a little lever. They are good, but they're not that great depending on the sort of the surface that you are parked on and you need to jack your vehicle up. So I would advise a high lift jack is great, but you don't need it at this point. The thing with high lift jacks, I'll just touch on it briefly, is you also need to have a high lift jacking point. And most vehicles, if they don't have, especially the newer ones, they don't even have jacking points. So at this point in time, as you're getting into this lifestyle, don't bother with that. Get yourself a fairly tall bottle jack. They are not extremely expensive. They are not enormously heavy, but you can carry it around without taking up too much space in your vehicle. So get yourself a good bottle jack. If you already got a bottle jack that came with the vehicle, get one that's taller, as high as it possibly can go. And that will be very invaluable when you're trying to change a wheel. An essential accessory that you need to have, you must have, in my opinion, when you go off-road, get off the blacktop and into gravel and sand and mud terrain, is to have a good, at least good basic recovery set of gears. So, and now you can buy these from reputed suppliers. There's many off-road or 4x4 accessory suppliers out there. They will give you a basic set, and in that set you will get, what you should have is a good snatch strap and a tow strap. Now what's the difference? A tow strap is where it's a bit like a tow rope. You hook it up to the end of one end to the stuck vehicle and the other end to a vehicle that will be recovering, and then as that vehicle moves, the tow rope or the tow strap will hopefully try and bring that vehicle out. Whereas a snatch strap works differently. It's a bit like a elastic band. It's got a bit of flexibility in it, stretching capabilities, and that stretch It's just like a elastic band or rubber band, uses that stretching energy to convert into inertia, and that in turn pulls, gives a lot more pulling force and hopefully recover the stuck vehicle. So again, not going into detail. I will do a video later down the track, but in the meantime, if you're keen, just do a bit of a research on YouTube, and there's heaps of videos out there on how to use these. Now, once you have these, then you also need to have a shackle. Shackles are used to connect the tow rope or tow strap or the snatch strap to the recovery point in either of the vehicles. You can't just tie it, and you have to get what's called a rated shackle. Again, when you buy a recovery kit, it will come with these, or if you speak to the retailer that you're buying from, they will give you a rated shackle based on the type of vehicle you've got or how big or small your vehicle might be. But you need a shackle to connect these to the recovery point. Now, while on recovery points, initially you can use the factory supplied recovery points in your vehicle to for your recovery. But as you progress in your overlanding lifestyle, and you start going more and more into a harder terrain, the factory supplied recovery points are not that great and they're not strong enough. So then you will need to upgrade to more stronger aftermarket recovery points that you can buy and install, but that's at a later stage. You don't have to worry about it at this point. At the same time, when you are using a snatch strap or a tow rope or tow strap, you need to be very careful of safety, because if they do snap, and they can snap, not always, but depending on how much wear there has been on them beforehand, they can snap. So one, you need to stand very clear, don't have anyone standing close by. And secondly, you can buy these dampers. Now usually they come with the kits, or you can ask the supplier or the retailer that you're buying from, and it's a damper that you put onto the strap or the rope. So what happens is, if that breaks, the strap breaks, the weight of the damper will just take away the load, or that's without going all over the place and creating damage or injuring someone. So that's in pure basic terms that I've explained. So you need to be aware of that. And also, because you're going to be doing a lot of these with your bare hands, get yourself a good set of gloves. Again, usually comes with these kits, or you can ask the retailer to recommend a set of gloves for you. Don't get your hands or fingers injured. Use a pair of gloves. That's what they're for. Doing recoveries, do not, and I cannot emphasize this enough, do not recover using your tow hitch. Tow hitches are not designed to be used as recovery points. Even if you're going to tow someone, I mean, it's not a recovery as such, but maybe someone's vehicle's broken down and you want to tow them a short distance, do not use the tow hitch. Use one of the recovery points. Very, very important. A toolkit. Now that is something else that you need to carry with you. You may not have much knowledge on how to get a repair done, but a toolkit is still essential. Who knows? Someone might come along and they'll be able to help you out, and you got a toolkit. Or you might be amongst other travelers who are going with you, and they may have a bit of knowledge, and they could help you out. You got a toolkit. Get a set of basic spanners, basic screwdrivers, zip ties, cable ties, duct tape, things like that. I am working on a video which is in addition to this series where I talk in detail about the toolkit that I carry, so look out for that. But in the meantime, consider getting yourself a basic toolkit. Along with your recovery kit, have a set of sand tracks. Sand tracks can be used in muddy situations as well as in sandy situations where you get stuck and you need to get that traction for your wheels. So jack your vehicle up, shove these sand tracks in between your wheels and the sand or the mud, and these will give you that added traction that you need to get your vehicle out. So it's a pretty good addition to have along with your recovery kit. Next accessory, the most low-tech of accessories but the most useful in my experience, is a shovel. Get yourself preferably a long handle shovel. It's a lot easier to use. But shovels are the most invaluable kit you can have in terms of recovering. So if you're stuck And no matter whatever gear you may have, you still need to do a bit of digging and cleaning around the stuck wheels. So a shovel is a must. There are these foldable shovels you can buy, but I find them too small, and then it's back-breaking because you've got to bend real hard to try and dig. But if you have got a long handle shovel, which you can even buy from any hardware store, and on other occasions when you're not stuck and you're not recovering yourself, the shovel still becomes very useful when nature calls, and nature is all you got, so that becomes useful too. So it's dual purpose, you could say. So get yourself a good shovel. Now the next accessory is a roof rack. Now that all depends on how much of cargo or equipment, camping gear you're planning on carrying. You may not need a roof rack. So if you don't need a roof rack, don't bother with it. Because it's unnecessary weight on your vehicle. They also act as wind barriers that kind of adds to your fuel consumption. So if you don't need a roof rack, don't bother with it. But assess what you're going to carry and how much you're going to carry, and then if you do need a roof rack, then by all means go for it. But if you're going for a roof rack, whether you're buying brand new or pre-owned, make sure it's in good condition, especially pre-owned. If you're buying pre-owned, make sure it's in good condition, doesn't have any cracks. Or it hasn't been repaired, or has the repair been done properly. And secondly, it's from a good brand. Also keep in mind each rack comes with its own load rating. So you need to now then figure out what the load rating of the rack is as compared to how much you're planning to carry. Also, very, very important, it's not just a matter of getting a good, well-rated rack and putting it on your roof. You also got to make sure your roof can take it. So that's where your manufacturer's handbook comes in, or doing speaking to your vehicle dealer or supplier or a garage that knows about these things, and ask them what is the rating, how much of load can the roof of your vehicle take, and then work around that. So in fact, that's your starting point. So your starting point is how much your vehicle can take, and then decide on what load you're going to carry, and then thereafter decide what kind of a rack you need. So in my opinion, I feel that's about the bare basics that you need. As I stated at the start of this video, there's a whole host of other gear and accessories and modifications you can get, but I really don't see the need for them at this point when you're just getting into this lifestyle. There are other mods and accessories you might have heard of, like snorkels. Do you need a snorkel? Well, if you're not planning to cross rivers and where there's water crossings and water is going to come over your bonnet, do you really need a snorkel at this point? You will eventually get to doing those things, and that's where the fun part comes in, but not at this point. So if budget allows, or if you're going to get it done within your finances, then go for it. Get yourself a snorkel as well, because snorkels are also good. I mean, not necessarily just for crossing rivers and where there's water. Snorkels also, because they sit pretty high up, they breathe a lot cleaner in terms of dust and so on. So they are good to have, but it's not a must. So that's why I didn't put it in my list of essentials. Next is winch. You don't need a winch. Again, depends on where you're going to go touring. Now, most of the touring I've done is here in South Australia, where we have flat country. And I have never used my winch. I have a winch, but I haven't used it. It's flat country, and then eventually if you did come to a point where you got stuck, there's hardly any trees to hook the winch up to, so there's no anchoring points to find anywhere near. So I'm yet to use my winch. So it depends on the terrain and the kind of places that you're going to try and travel to. So at this point, again, you don't need a winch. However, like I said, when you're getting a bull bar, make sure it's got provision for it. So down the track, as you progress in your lifestyle, you can install one. Do you need to have a lifted suspension? Not again. Again, if you're going to buying brand new and you want to include it in your finances, so it's paid off in one go, or you just bought it in pre-owned and it's already had a lifted suspension, fantastic. But do you really need to get a lifted suspension? Not really. I have a lifted suspension in my 80 series, and a lot of the places I've traveled to, I've come across travelers who are on stock standard vehicles doing the same thing. So it's not a must. Eventually, you could look at doing it again down the track, but it's not something you need at this point. Spotlights. Yes, spotlights are useful, but I didn't mention it in my list because I don't see the need for it. Most vehicles come with really good lighting these days, and if you're not, initially, when you're getting into this lifestyle again, I would recommend try very hard not to drive when it's dark. There's a lot of unknowns out there when it's dark, so try and stick to not doing that. If you want to get a set, go for it, but it's not an essential, so that didn't make it to my list either. UHF radio, CB radio. Now those can be useful, in fact, pretty useful, but I didn't put it into this list because I'm going to talk about communications. That's another part that's coming up in this series, and I'll talk about it. So, in that I'll talk about whether you really need a CB radio at this point, or you can get away with some other means of communication. So watch out for that. So that's my list of bare basics, vehicle modifications and vehicle related accessories I feel, in my opinion, you should carry when you're getting into this overlanding lifestyle. If there's anyone watching this video who feels there's others that should be added to that list from their experience, please feel free, put it in the comments below. It's all about sharing information with the wider community, especially for the benefit of those who are just getting into this lifestyle. And if you've got any questions relating to this video, please leave the comments below too, and I'll answer those questions at the start of my next video, which is on camping gear. So next Thursday I'm going to be talking about camping gear. Again, the bare basics I feel you should carry. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. It's a wonderful community to be in, and I'm doing my part in sharing my knowledge and experiences. So subscribe. And something else I'll leave with you at the end of this video is as much as watching these videos and gaining knowledge, this is just the basics that I or any creator on YouTube can provide. What you really need to do is now get in amongst others who are already into this lifestyle, people who are already experienced. And one really great way to do that is get into a club. Now again, I know there's a lot of online clubs, and that's all great, but what you really need to do is go and meet person on person. So get into a club, go for a couple of club meets, find out where there's a club nearest to you, and meet like-minded people, and you will feed off their knowledge base, their experiences. And it's also a great place to make really good friends. I joined a 4x4 club many years ago back in Africa, and some of the friendships I made there are still around even today. They might be scattered all over the world, not necessarily be living here in Australia, but I have some really wonderful friends, and we have great memories from did trips before together, and we still have common talking points. So get into a club. That's what I would recommend. So I'll see you next Thursday when I come over to talk about basic camping gear. Until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.